A man, by some accounts nearly a foot taller than Bruce Lee, once publicly declared he could end a fight with him in a single punch. He held a belief common to many, that size was the ultimate advantage, an absolute truth carved in stone and muscle. What happened in the seconds that followed did not just silence him, it proved that everything he thought he knew about fighting was a fragile illusion. This is not simply a story about a fight, it is about the moment that illusion shattered against the unyielding surface of reality. It's about the vast, often invisible chasm between looking strong and being dangerous.
Make me. I will.
The legends surrounding Bruce Lee are filled with moments where his physical stature led others to disastrously underestimate him. While many of these stories have been passed down, becoming near-mythical tales whispered in dojos and late-night conversations, they all point to a consistent and verifiable truth. Bruce Lee was a master at turning an opponent's arrogance into a weapon against them. One of the most enduring of these legends takes place not in a ring or on a film set, but in the sterile, bustling environment of an airport in the early 1970s. The story goes that a man towering over Lee's 5'7" frame began to openly mock his build. To this man, and to many who subscribed to the simple math of bigger equals stronger, Lee's lean physique was an invitation for ridicule. He saw speed perhaps, but not power. He saw an actor, not a fighter. His boast was as loud as it was confident. He could defeat Bruce in a single blow. He was articulating a worldview where fights are won by mass and brute force, a perspective shared by countless people who have never had that belief system violently dismantled. Witnesses to the alleged event describe Bruce's reaction not as anger, but as a profound calm. He didn't argue, he didn't posture, he simply responded. The movement that followed is often described as a blur, not a telegraphed punch or a dramatic kick, but a tiny, compact strike that traveled a distance of mere inches. It was an action so small it seemed incapable of generating real force. Yet, the result was instantaneous. The challenger collapsed, not unconscious, but left breathless on the floor, his entire system shocked into submission. The most telling detail from this legend is what Bruce did next. Nothing. He returned to his stance, his posture unchanged, his breathing steady. It was as if the explosive expenditure of energy had cost him nothing at all. Whether this airport encounter happened exactly as told or is an amalgamation of similar events, it serves as the perfect parable for a recurring theme in Lee's life. It wasn't an isolated incident. There are other tales, other challengers. A story from 1964 tells of a Golden Gloves boxer who supposedly walked into Bruce's Oakland Quoon, declaring that kung fu was for the weak. The encounter, as it is told, ended in under 10 seconds with a precision sweep that put the boxer on the floor, his understanding of combat completely upended. Another tale speaks of a 250-pound bodybuilder who scoffed at Bruce's frame, only to be met with a brief, shocking demonstration of force that left him speechless. These stories, factual or legendary, all orbit the same central point. People saw Bruce Lee's size and drew a conclusion. In every case, their conclusion was wrong. So what was really happening in these encounters? How could a man weighing less than 160 pounds generate such definitive, fight-ending power from movements that seemed almost insignificant? To understand this, we have to look past the stories and into the science and philosophy that Bruce Lee embodied. This was not magic. It was a complete redefinition of power built from the ground up. The first mistake his challengers made was in thinking they were facing an opponent who would play by their rules, the rules of mass, weight, and visible effort. They expected a push and they received a shockwave. They expected a brawl and they were given a lesson in physics. The answer to how he generated this power lies in two interconnected domains: the biomechanics of his strikes and the philosophical framework that guided his every action. He didn't just train his muscles, he rewired his nervous system and cultivated a state of mind where efficiency was the ultimate weapon. He proved that the most dangerous force in a fight isn't the weight of the fist, but the intelligence that guides it. The devastating tiny strike from the airport legend is, in essence, a practical application of the principles behind Bruce Lee's famous one-inch punch. It's a technique that has been studied by biomechanical researchers and neuroscientists, and it reveals a level of coordination that appears, to most people, almost superhuman. The secret is not in the arm, it is in the entire body working as a single, perfectly synchronized unit. Biomechanical researchers who have studied the technique note that Lee's incredible power starts from the ground. In footage of the one-inch punch, one can see a rapid, explosive extension of his knees. This is not simply him standing up straight, it is a violent impulse that initiates a kinetic chain. Think of it as cracking a whip. The power does not originate at the tip, it starts in the handle and travels down its length, accelerating as it goes. For Bruce Lee, his feet were the handle. The explosive leg extension generates an initial wave of force. This force then travels upwards, causing his hips to twist at an incredible speed. This hip rotation is crucial. It acts as a transmission, multiplying the force generated by the legs. That whip-like action then lurches the shoulder of his striking arm forward. Only at the very end of this chain does the arm itself perform its duty. The rapid extension of the elbow drives the fist forward, and a final flick of the wrist just before impact acts as the crack of the whip, further increasing the fist's velocity. What his challengers perceived as a tiny arm movement was, in fact, the very last event in a perfectly timed sequence that began with his feet pushing against the floor. This is how hundreds of pounds of ground reaction force could be channeled through his lean frame and focused onto a single point of impact. The physics lesson does not end there. Another critical component is the timing of the impact itself. Lee would retract his punch almost immediately upon making contact. This shortens the impact time, which dramatically compresses and magnifies the force delivered. It is the difference between a hard push and a sharp slap. The push might move you, but the slap, with its rapid acceleration and deceleration, delivers a painful shock. Neuroscience offers another layer to this mystery. Research has found that the force and coordination of elite martial artists are directly related to the microstructure of the brain's white matter, which is responsible for coordinating movement. These studies suggest that years of relentless, specific training can alter this white matter, allowing for more complex and rapid synchronization of muscles. In essence, Bruce Lee hadn't just built strong muscles, he had physically rewired his brain to fire those muscles with near-perfect harmony. Furthermore, power is useless without precision. The airport story notes the challenger was left gasping for air. This strongly suggests the target was the solar plexus, a bundle of nerves located behind the stomach. A sharp strike to this area can cause the diaphragm to spasm, leading to temporary respiratory paralysis. It is a debilitating, terrifying experience that neutralizes a threat without escalating to a more brutal level of violence. It is a strike of pure intelligence. This aligns perfectly with the central tenet of his martial art, Jeet Kune Do, the way of the intercepting fist. It is about intercepting an opponent's intent before their technique can even manifest. This is what his opponents failed to grasp. They saw man, but they were facing a system of biomechanics, neuroscience, and combat philosophy that turned his entire body into a weapon. They prepared for a fight of strength against strength, and instead they were dismantled by physics. To truly understand what happened in those 10 seconds, one must look beyond the physical. The men who challenged Bruce Lee were not just defeated by a superior technique, they were defeated by their own minds. They were beaten before the first movement ever took place because their idea of what a fight was, what strength was a cage. The challengers held a fixed image of a powerful fighter, big, muscular, imposing. This ideal was a yardstick that made them feel secure, but it blinded them to any form of power that didn't fit their narrow definition. It was an illusion, and Bruce Lee was the reality that shattered it. He embodied his most famous teaching to be like water. Water has no fixed shape. You put it in a cup, it becomes the cup. It can flow or it can crash. Against his challengers, Bruce did not meet force with force. That would be like one rock crashing against another. Instead, he flowed around their aggression. He became formless, adapting to their attack and using their own energy and commitment against them. His movements were a direct expression of his own capabilities, with an economy of motion that wasted no energy on flashy, unnecessary techniques. This is why witnesses describe his actions as small or tiny. They were the most direct, most efficient solution to the problem presented. Nothing more, nothing less. The men who faced him were defeated by their internal enemies, their pride, their assumptions, and their rigid adherence to what they thought they already knew. Bruce Lee's victory wasn't just physical, it was philosophical. He didn't just put them on the floor, he demonstrated that their entire framework for understanding strength was built on a fragile foundation. The 10 seconds it took for that boastful challenger to find himself breathless on the floor was more than just a quick fight. It was the silent, sudden collapse of a worldview. The challenger's defeat was not measured in bruises, but in the quiet crumbling of his most deeply held beliefs about power. The tiny strike that ended the encounter was a physical thesis statement, proving that true power does not need to be loud. It does not need to be big. It often reveals itself in the quietest, most unassuming moments. These encounters, whether precise historical records or legendary tales, all teach the same profound lesson. The real battle is rarely against the opponent in front of you. The real battle is against the limitations you place on yourself, against your own ego, your own preconceptions, and your own unwillingness to see the world as it is, rather than how you believe it should be. Bruce Lee's response to being underestimated was never to argue, he demonstrated. In doing so, he offered his challengers more than a defeat. He offered them a lesson. The kind of lesson that can only be learned when your reality is forcibly taken apart in front of you. In the end, that skinny body didn't just fight, it taught. It revealed that the human body, when guided by a disciplined and liberated mind, is capable of generating force that defies expectation. It proved that in any real confrontation, the victor is decided not by size, but by timing, technique, and the element of surprise that comes from shattering an opponent's assumptions. The legacy of these 10-second encounters is not about violence, it is about enlightenment. It is a timeless reminder that our greatest strengths and our most crippling weaknesses originate from the same place, our own minds. True strength is not measured in pounds or inches. It is measured in discipline, in awareness, and in the courage to question everything you think you know. Some men are not what they appear to be, and some lessons once learned are never forgotten.